Okay guys, today's project is going to be working on my girlfriend's 2014 IS350 F Sport. Today's project is going to be replacing the front brakes. Her car's got around 40,000 miles on it, maybe 30 to 40,000 miles on it, and she's having a real bad brake. I think what happened is I think the rotors are warped, and when she hits the brake, you're not hearing a pad noise. It's not like, you know, the pad wear indicators are squeaking. The car is shaking real bad up front. So what we do is replace the two front rotors. Like I said, I'm pretty sure they're warped. I'm also going to replace the pads at the same time since we're in here. And the replacement kit we're going to go with is from Powerstop. So the brake kit we're going with is the Z23 pads. They're carbon fiber and ceramic compounds that are fused together for the pads. And the rotors are their zinc coated. It's part of the Z23 kit. I'll include a part number for the whole kit. The whole kit from Rock Auto, using the 5% coupon that you can just Google, was about $205. To put this into perspective, one rotor from Lexus was going to be $100. I think the cheapest I saw was $96 per rotor. So the whole kit with pads for $200, that's a pretty good deal. So that's why we ended up going with that. We looked into the AutoZone, the Napa brand, and those prices were going to be in the $180 to $200 price range for their, not their generic kit, but their middle of the road kit. And I just wasn't, for the, you know, the 15 to maybe the $15 to $20 extra we paid for the Z23 performance kit, I really think this is going to be a much better deal, because I really didn't want to throw some junk ceramic pad, or, you know, some junk pads and junk rotors on here. This is an F Sport, so, you know, would drive it kind of aggressively. So we got the Powerstop pads, rotors. It's part of their one-click system. So it's just one part number. It has the pads, it has the rotors, it has the clips, came with brake lube that you put on the back of the pad. So it has everything that I'm going to need for this project, and, you know, it's pretty simple to find. I got, like I said, I found on Rock Auto. I ordered it Wednesday. It is Saturday, so I got it in, no, I'm sorry, I ordered it Thursday. It's Saturday today. I got it in 3 days. So, and we paid standard ground shipping through Rock Auto. It drop shipped from Powerstop up in Illinois down here to North Carolina, and shipped through FedEx. We got it in a couple days. So pretty good customer shipping service and all that. Haven't had any problems with ordering it. So let's get started with the install. Okay guys, I have the car in the air. This car was kind of a pain to get jacked up, because the front of the car is so low that my standard low profile jack, I've got one of these old, it's US General, but it's Pittsburgh now. I think it's just a 1 ton or ton and a half low profile jack. I actually couldn't get that all the way under the car because it was so low. So what I did was I actually drove the car up onto my race ramps to the end, and then underneath here, so that gave me enough room to get my 3-ton, this is a 3-ton aluminum jack from Harbor Freight. You can see that hockey puck and the red floor jack pad, if you want to call it that. That is under the main frame right there. So I used that to jack the car up, got it high enough in the air to pull the race ramps out, and then I lowered the floor jack down onto the jack stands, and I put the jack stands under the pinch weld. So that doesn't sound like it took very long, but it actually took a really long time, because I had to figure out, this car is so new that I've actually never been underneath it. So, but got it onto the jack stands, and as you can see, I have race deck underneath all of the jack stands. That just helps protect the floor. And actually the bigger piece, that is actually from Swiss Tracks. I got that as a sample like 2 years ago before I decided to buy the race deck. So I used their sample as my pad to protect the weights from crushing the race deck underneath the car. So, and that's for the 3-ton jack stand. Otherwise, 2 smaller pieces of the race deck will fit the standard floor jack that was over there. So, but yeah, that's how I got the car up in the air. Next, I'm going to take the wheels off and get started on the pads. Okay guys, I've gotten the wheel off. Take the 2 brake caliper bolts out the back, and I'll separate the caliper from the knuckle. Take that, put it on a bucket so I don't stretch out the brake line. Pop the pads out and start on replacing the passenger side brakes. Okay guys, as you can see, I took the caliper off. It's held on with 2 bolts. These are 2 17mm bolts. They go through the steering knuckle. Like I said, 17mm. Put my gun on it, my impact gun. It backed right out. These 2 bolts came out. And I just got a 5-gallon bucket, turned it upside down, and it's the perfect height of where I'm at with the car sitting on jack stands to sit on top of the bucket, and it doesn't have any, there's no tension on the brake line. So that's not gonna get stretched out. It's not gonna damage the line or the caliper or anything. So use a bucket. I think it's a pretty good solution. So, and actually when I took the caliper off, it busted the rotor loose. So you just take the rotor off and call it a day. Now to remove the driver's side rotor, I actually had to use my rubber mallet. What I did was I took the caliper off. As you can see, there's a hole here in the dust shield, and I just whacked on it a good 4 or 5 times. Finally popped loose, and I was able to shimmy it and take it off. So as I mentioned, I've already done the driver's side, just kind of figure out how to get the brake system done on. I've never done a Toyota Lexus before, so it was my first time doing that. So just, you know, did the driver's side. It went pretty quick. I haven't run into any issues, and the Powerstop pieces literally have been fitting with no issue. So what we do next is tear apart the caliper, and then put the rotor on, and then I'll bolt the caliper back onto the steering knuckle loosely. Then I'll put the pads and all that in. So to get started with the caliper, the first thing you need to do is remove the pin, the safety loop. It's actually pretty smart. I had not seen this on any brake system that I've worked on before, and I've been working on Brembos, PBR 6-piston calipers, you know, even standard, you know, twin and single piston calipers. I had not seen a safety clip like that on the pin. That's pretty smart. So the next thing you're gonna need to do is pop the pin out of the back of the caliper. You're gonna want a hole punch set, and I'll have a part number listed in the description below of this hole punch set. I actually use the same set on the SS on that Brembo, and it's worked fine. So this will work on a Toyota. You simply put it in the hole and knock the pin back loose. Now on the driver's side, I actually had to do this a couple times. Let's see if this loosened up. So squeeze down on the retaining bracket, like on both sides, squeeze that in, and it should loosen up and the pin pulls right out. So save your pin and save your clip. And now this will pull out, and the calipers and the pads will pull out as well. So pull your pads out, and this will have the rattle clip right here. That's on the inside, and your other side is just your standard clip. So now I'm gonna put the rotor on. I'll bolt the caliper back to the spindle, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but you know, you didn't need to see me. I cleaned both sides of the rotor with non-chlorinated brake cleaner from AutoZone. Cleaned both sides, you know, spray it down, wipe it off. And I put a very good amount of anti-seize, nickel-based anti-seize on the back of the hub and on the around the hub, and a little bit on the threads as well. This will just make the anti-seize will just make the next time these rotors come off, they should pop right on and pop right off with no issue. So let's get the rotor on here. These things are freaking heavy, and follow the Powerstop recommendations with which side the rotor goes on. Okay, rotor's on, so I'm going to put a lug nut on. Speed this up a little bit, use a gun. Use it on the opposite. Okay, so rotor's on. Alright, so the rotor's on. Next step I'm going to do is actually put the caliper. I can't put the caliper back on yet. What I need to do is squish the, not squish, I need to press the brake pistons back into the caliper. And how I'm going to do that is use an old pad. Use the old pad as my mounting surface, and use my giant C-clamp to hold this down, and I'll tighten it. Now on the front, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use a shim. I use this on the other side just to protect the paint. I'm not even sure if these are painted. They're coated with something just to protect the bottom coating, and this is the side you're going to see looking through the wheel. So I'll put a shim on the bottom, put an old brake pad on top, clamp it down, and the next thing you'll see is me putting the pads in. Okay guys, I've gotten the caliper on. It's loose, I haven't tightened it yet. Now, like I said, it's a 17 millimeter. I'm just gonna lightly tighten these bolts. Okay. Now I'm going to put the pads in. Alright, so now it's time for the pads. And I'm going to use the ceramic silicone brake component that was supplied by Powerstop. Now the pad, I'm going to do the inner pad first on the inside toward the body. And I'm actually going to lube these up like you do with the Brembos. You do the top and bottom. You do this top edge to bottom edge. Then I'm also going to do the pad, the backing pad as well. The Powerstop instructions aren't 100% clear. I mean, it said, you know, put grease on all of the mounting surfaces, so that would include, just like the Brembos, the top and bottom slides. So that's what we're going to do with these pads. That's great. I think a weather storm's moving in and all of my cars are outside. So, okay. So let's finish this up. So, top and bottom of the pad, just like you do the Brembos. So in the Brembos, you use the copper-based lube, anti-seize stuff, and I actually haven't had a problem with that. I haven't heard of these Lexus having that same issue of, you know, squealing pads. I may end up swapping the bottom and top with the copper-based anti-seize that I've been using on the Brembos, and I've had pretty good luck on the SS. I haven't had much on there, but just kind of doing a circle, trying to get as much of the lube on here, lubricant. And you don't need to do the whole back of the pad. You really only need to do the part where the pistons are going to sit. So I think that should be plenty. It might not be, but it should be fine. So let's get this pad pushed in. All right, that slid right in. So I'll do the same as the other side, and we'll get back to putting the pin, the safety pin in as well, and then that should be about it. So I got the other pad in, slid right in with no issue. What I'm gonna do next is put the retain clip in, and then I'm gonna put the pin in. But with the pin, you have to make sure that the hole is facing up, because that's where that safety clip slides into. So put it in, make sure it's facing up, so that hole is still facing up, and tap it in real lightly. Okay, I had to get that, push that in, line the whole setup up. All right, so now you can barely see, but the hole for that safety clip is right there. Grab your little safety clip, put it in. All right, now we're basically done. I'm gonna tap this in a little bit more, okay? And now the pin's in, the pads are in. That's really about it. What I'm gonna do now is clean up the extra brake lube. So yeah, that's your IS350 front brake install with the Powerstop system. Now, I still need to do the braking procedure that Powerstop recommends. I'll do that. I'll put the wheel back on. We'll put the wheel back on, then do the braking procedure. And that really should be about it. There's no, nothing too complex with this brake upgrade. And I would say that this whole setup from Powerstop was actually pretty nice. Like, came with the bracket, came with the pads, the rotors, and everything bolted right in. When I ordered this, I'd heard of Powerstop. I'd seen it on various television shows saying these are like the next best thing. So I wasn't totally sure about the brake setup, but for this car, like I said with pricing earlier, I think by spending just a little bit of extra money, you're going to get a much better braking setup for your stock, minus going to a big brake kit. Now, the only other thing I would have to say is that this is the first time I'm working on these Advics, I guess is what they're called. It's ADVICS. It's first time. This is almost just basically a 4-piston Brembo, just a little bit more thicker, and I think that this is made out of iron versus the Brembos being made out of aluminum. So actually, I'm not sure if the Brembos are aluminum. Doesn't matter. But this Toyota front setup is pretty similar. It's a 4-piston caliper. The slides are pretty much the same, and everything went together real well. So I will do an in-car review next of these brake pads and let you guys know how they feel. Okay guys, we're doing the cool down from the brake bed-in process. For Powerstop, they call for 40 to 10, do that 5 times in a row, then do 35 to 5 times in a row, and then let the car cool down for 5 minutes. So I already did the 45 to 10 and the 35 to 5 part. Now we're just doing the cool down, and I'm trying not to touch the brakes. Thankfully, we're on a fairly empty country road, and we should be able to get to the end of this road. It should be about 5 minutes, give or take. So anyway, I'll continue recording after the cooling down process, and then I'll let you guys know what the brakes feel like. I'm actually impressed. These damn. These actually brake really well. I would highly recommend the Powerstop Z23 Evolution pads. I'll do an update in, you know, maybe 6 months and see how the pad and rotor wear is going, but for initial fire up and initial stopping, these things are pretty damn good. Now, supposedly these things are supposed to dust less, and they're also supposed to stop harder because of the carbon fiber compound. So far, these things are doing pretty well. Now, this is an IS350 F Sport. It's not a track car, so I'm not going to be taking this on any track days anytime soon. So I couldn't do a comparison of, you know, a big brake kit versus a, you know, a standard size rotor and pad. You know, I don't know if these would have a brake fade. Supposedly they don't, but we'll see. So, anyway, thanks guys for joining, and have a good one. Thanks for watching my video. Don't forget to like it, and if you haven't already, please subscribe.